Hi, welcome to another edition of City Scene with Mayor Mike Cahill. I'm your host, Walt Kosmowski. And as you can see, we are not in the studio. We are here on location at the building site in the construction trailer at the new middle school site. And I have with me Mayor Mike Cahill. Mike.
Hey, Walt, good to see you.
Always good to see you. And today we are going to have a site tour of the new building and see the construction that's progressed so far. And to help us along is Bob Gilchrist. Bob.
Morning, Walt.
And Bob, you're with the construction company, Agostini and Bacon?
Correct.
Correct, okay. So we're going to go outside and see if we can stay out of the way of the front end loaders and the bulldozers, and we'll take you on a tour of the new building site for the new middle school. So we'll be right back. So the last time that we were here was March 1st of this year, and at that time we stood out in front of the old building, and it had been completely remediated, as I understand, Bob. And we were there when the first, the front end loader was starting to tear down the building at the very beginning. So kind of tell us about how you got to that point, and then maybe bring us forward from there.
Sure. I believe what we were here on was the first day of demolition of the old building. So we spent about 6 weeks demolishing the old building, tearing it down, loading it out, recycling all the waste materials, and hauling those off site. Just about probably somewhere in the May time frame, we started driving steel piles on the site to support the new foundation. So we spent about 2 months, the months of May and June into July, driving over 1,200 steel piles down 60, 80 feet underneath the foundation to support the new foundations in the new building. Somewhere in the July time frame, we started work on our foundations, and as you can see behind us, the first classroom wing of the building is what we call Zone 1. That's where we started our foundations. We've been working on them ever since July. We're finishing up right now in the auditorium area, which is what we call Zone 4. And the foundations in Zone 1 were completed in about 4 to 6 weeks, at which time we were able to start structural steel, which is our major activity, which is going on right now.
Now tell us about what is the substrate or the underground look like? You had to drive those pilings, you say 60 to 80 feet. What is under here? Is it solid rock? Is it mud? Is it what is that?
Right. We have soft clay soils underneath the site right here. So soils that will not support a building. The old building, the old memorial building was on old concrete piles. We did an analysis during the design of this project and calculated that steel piles would be the most economical way to go forward. And the structural engineers designed a system of almost 1,300 piles that we drove for a couple of months time frame to get down through that soft clay. Once we get through the soft clay, we are either down to bedrock or a hard bearing material down underneath it that will support the building, will support the foundations.
And the old concrete pilings were removed, or did you just leave them there?
Most of those we left in place, and thankfully we only ran into interferences with a handful, 2 or 3 of them. We were able to avoid those as much as we possibly could.
So it's November 4th right now, Mr. Mayor, and when did the first shovel full of earth, or when did this project actually begin, Mike?
I think we remember, Bob. It was Monday morning, January 4th or so. I think as we were over at the high school and I was taking the oath of office for my second term, they'd already been out here for a couple of hours, starting work that morning. So there's a lot that's gone on. One thing that we didn't really touch on, maybe Bob can explain, is once those piles got driven, and those are all steel columns, correct?
Correct.
There were some pads poured on top of the columns, and then the foundation went in on that. Can you explain how that all is supported?
Sure. The piles that are driven into the ground get topped by what we call a pile cap, a concrete pile cap. And in some locations, a single pile is capped with a concrete top. In other locations, you might have 2, 3, or 4 piles that support a single cap, depending on the way the building is designed. And then, as the mayor said, those pile caps are tied together with what we call concrete grade beams, and a significant amount of concrete and reinforcing to support the entire building and the weight of the building.
Now, our viewers might be interested to know how many workmen might you have on the site at any given time?
We've been averaging somewhere in the order of 30 to 50 workers, depending on the weather and the work activities that are going forward. We will expect to get, once we get inside the building and we're working on interior and exterior work, we'll expect the numbers to get close to 150 to 200 workers on a given day.
And Agostini & Bacon is the general contractor, right?
We are. This is actually a construction management at risk project, and we are actually the construction manager for this project. So we were brought on probably almost 18 months ago now, in June of last year, to help and assist during the design, prepare cost estimates, help with the bidding, pre-qualifying of contracted trades. So we've been involved long before the physical start of construction as a construction manager.
So you're in charge of hiring the subcontractors and managing the subcontractors?
Correct.
And give us an idea for our viewers, how many different subcontractors might you be using?
We will likely use somewhere on the order of 40 to 50 different sub-trades. Everything from plumbers and electricians to masons and carpet installers, drywall contractors, landscapers, irrigation subs, and everywhere in between.
Okay, and you talked about some of the things that are going to be going on inside, so maybe what we can do is get a closer look at some of that activity, and we'll be right back in a second. So here we are at the back end of the building, and Mr. Mayor, I think you have a question for Bob about the construction management and his involvement in the design as opposed to the construction of the building.
Yes, thanks, Walt. Well, Bob touched on earlier the CM at risk component. Early in this job with our owner's project manager here at International, we made the decision to use a construction manager at risk as opposed to the traditional design, bid, build construction process. And part of the reason was that we are on a very aggressive timetable. We want to get the building finished and the kids into the building, by the summer of 2018. And so that's been very important. And there are also opportunities for cost savings and better communication and coordination of work and improvement on design. And one of the great benefits here is that Agostini Bacon and AI3R Architect and here International have all worked together before. They're making a great team for the city. And I know Bob has some more insight on specifically how CM at Risk has benefited us to date.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Mayor. The advantages for us have been, getting involved early on and also in scheduling. We were involved in some very early decisions back in 2015 with whether or not we were going to build the building out of a wood frame or a steel frame, whether or not we were going to put concrete piles under the building or steel piles. So we were able to touch base with our subcontractor forces, with our technical specialists, and put our 2 cents in and estimate that work to find out what was the most economical and what made the most sense for the project back at that point in time. The second biggest advantage is actually earlier this week, on Wednesday of this week, we opened bids for all the trade contracts on the job, those electricians and plumbers that we talked about. The actual design was only just completed on September 30th. Yet we've been working out here for 9 months doing abatement and demo, pile driving and foundation work. Those designs for those pieces were put together back in the springtime and the summertime early, which allowed us to bid that work out early. The final design of the classrooms, the roofing, the windows, that wasn't finalized until September 30th. So we've got the advantage right now of being able to deliver to the city in only 15 or 16 months from now. March of 2018, we're going to deliver a finished building, whereas if we were just starting construction now with a traditional fixed price, we would be roughly about 20 months, 21 months to complete the building, and we'd be really close to the fall of 2018, as opposed to opening up early, allowing the school to move furniture and technology into the building in the spring, allowing the teachers to get settled before the summer break. So it's really got some advantages with scheduling and sequencing the work so that early work can be done when it's ready to go.
Yeah, a lot more efficient and ability to get to kind of double track your work. Yeah. Now you mentioned abatement. Tell us how much abatement and remediation was required here for our lay person viewer.
Sure. With the building being constructed back in the early 50s, you had asbestos contamination in floor tiles. It was locked in the fibers of the floor tiles. It was on pipe insulation under the building, the old boilers, things like that. It wasn't in the air, but it was in some of the building materials. So the very first step that we started back on January 4th was to get in with a licensed contractor under the supervision of the consultant and the DEP under their approvals, and we removed all of those asbestos waste materials from the building.
Right, and that was taken to a very special site, a disposal site, and that's nowhere near here.
For this project, the waste was hauled to licensed disposal facilities in Ohio.
In Ohio.
Yep. Every truck was tracked, every truck was lined and covered and tracked from the time it left the site here till the time it was disposed of in Ohio.
Now this structure is going to be how many stories above?
The new structure, the classroom wings will be 4 stories tall.
Okay.
So what you're looking at right behind us is the Library Media Center is closest to us. So that's a single-story structure on the end of the Zone 1 academic area. Behind that, you see the 4-story structure that will be one of the academic wings for the new building with grades 5, 6, 7, and 8 on the 4 floors, starting from 1 up to 4.
Okay. And
Bob,
now,
I should point out that while the library is a single-story structure, it's actually 2 stories high.
Correct.
The Library Media Center.
yeah, because
It's got higher ceilings and.
So how much longer are these steel beams? How much longer is that going to take? We're sitting here. It's November 4th or 5th.
Right.
How long will that take?
Our completion for the structural steel work, our target is into the middle of January.
Okay.
To complete all of the building steel.
Okay. And then when do you expect that it'll be tight to the outside? That won't take place till spring. Or?
That'll take a while. We've got the next step in the process after the structural steel is our concrete slabs for the floors of the building. We're actually scheduled to start that work as early as next week to try to get the Zone 1 concrete slabs started. And then as we just opened bids on Wednesday for the trades, the roofer and the siding contractors, that'll take a little bit of time to get approvals with the architect and to schedule that work, but we're hoping to start and close in some of those areas somewhere in the January time frame to start that work.
And you're planning to work for the entire winter? Your work is not going to stop, I guess, unless you get really bad thunderstorms, bad snowstorms, or which can happen in this area.
We are intending to build right through the winter. If you can remember 2 winters ago that was really bad, we actually were the general contractor on the Higgins Middle School over in Peabody and worked straight through the winter as best we could.
Yeah. So now, what do we want to do now? We want to go over to the other end of the building and have a look over there?
Well, what's safe?
I think maybe the best thing to do is this outdoor learning area, we can get up on an area that's fairly protected right there.
Okay.
And then we can look down on the auditorium and the gymnasium area, and that's probably easier to walk on, less muddy and all that.
All right, well, let's do that. Okay. All right, and Mr. Mayor, can you explain to us what we're standing and what we're looking at in the back here?
Sure. So to orient everybody, Cabot Street's over there, and as Bob had pointed out, where we were standing before, the Library Media Center and the first of the classroom wings. So there'll be 3 classroom wings there, here, and then over here. And then as you turn down here, Bob wanted to make sure we point out that's where the elevator will be that will service all 4 floors. And down over here will be the auditorium, and then right over here will be the gymnasium. Now there'll be 2 full-size basketball courts in the gymnasium, where we've got a middle school that's serving 4 grade levels, essentially a grade 5 and 6 academy and a grade 7-8 academy. Mm-hmm. So that's how the layout of the building will be. And then we're standing here pretty much where the cafeteria will open out into the outdoor learning area, and then out that way behind the camera will be where the athletic fields are as you go from here out to Walt Street.
Okay. And Bob, you mentioned before the steel pilings and the caps on them, and I think behind us, our viewers can see, if we can get a tight shot of that, we've got some rebar that's bent at a right angle. Explain to us what that is.
Sure. Immediately behind us, you can see some of the triangular shape and some of the square pile caps that we talked about earlier. And you can see the rebar sticking up out of them. That rebar is going to tie into the reinforcing steel that goes in the concrete slab. So that slab will be supported off of those pile caps as well. And in the middle of each one of the pile caps, you can see a steel plate. That's the base plate for all the structural steel columns. So all the structural steel columns are going up right now in the Zone 2 academic area, and they're sitting on top of similar pile caps, similar base plates throughout the building.
Mm-hmm. So how much weight is being carried by all those columns?
It's multiple tons of weight. You've got 4 stories. Each classroom is, designed for 50 pounds a square foot, plus all the weight of building materials. So we'd have to get an exact number from the structural engineer, but I think you're talking in excess of 50,000 pounds, 100,000 pounds in that neighborhood.
And I'm sure that the engineers have designed in a safety factor and load factor and so forth.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, explain to us, the mayor pointed out that over here on our right is where the gymnasiums are and so forth. So tell us about that. That seems to be on a lower level right now than what we're seeing over here.
Correct. Because of the topography of the land, the classroom wing kind of matched the Cabot Street elevation, and the lower level where the auditorium and the gymnasium are going to match the old elevation of the old fields. So the parking area behind the building will tie in nicely with the lower level underneath. So you're right, the gym and the auditorium, the gymnasium primarily is going to be on a lower level, and the auditorium is actually going to be up at the main level. Underneath the auditorium will actually be the locker rooms, the health classrooms, and support facilities for the gymnasium and health uses of the building.
Right. Now, this is a 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade situation, which is something that the school committee debated about. And there are actually going to be 2 cafeterias in the building, and will there be separate gymnasium facilities also for the 2?
Well, maybe you can try to paint a picture as we stand here. Some of the really great features of this building are that, the front entrance will be out facing Cabot Street. You'll come into the administrative offices, and then there'll be a main corridor. So the front of the building will be 2 stories high, and then when you get in past the administrative wing and the Library Media Center, it'll go up to 4 stories where the classroom wings start. And so there will be a main corridor that's 4 stories high that runs all the way down here to the back of the building. And really one of the neat features of that is there'll be a lot of glass as you look out this way. And as the 5th graders will be on the 1st floor of the 3 wings and the 6th on the 2nd, the first of the cafeterias, which will be 2 stories high, will serve the 5th and the 6th graders. Then there'll be a cafeteria on the 3rd level that's also 2 stories high that serves the 7th and the 8th graders.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, is there another angle here that would be good for us to look at out here, or?
I think this is probably the best because you've got a lot of site work going on in the front of the building, trying to get ready for underground utilities and paving work. And beyond that,
well, maybe as we're standing, you can just pan over there, because that's the back of the site. It's going towards Bulge. Right now, it's got some mountains of dirt. Eventually, it'll be the playing fields. Also, as you can imagine, there's a lot of parking needed. for a school like this, and the main parking area will be really right in front of us. Easy access from that parking area to the auditorium and the gymnasiums, which will allow for a lot of off-hours use and access to the building without accessing the whole building, access to those community amenities. So we expect a lot of community use of the gym and the auditorium. We also are looking for a lot of community use of the library media center. So there'll be parking along the front of the building. There'll actually be parking all around the building, but the main lot will be right in front of us there.
Okay. All right. So shall we go back to the construction tent construction trailer? Well, we're back here inside the construction trailer, and Mr. Mayor, Mike, why don't you tell us about some of the interior work and some of the other things now that need to happen after the structure is up?
Sure. You just point up that this project is ongoing. There's a lot of work being done now for some of the interior work, as you said. Two big categories: furniture, fixtures, and equipment, FF&E, all interior pieces to the school that we're working to determine just how much can be spent in this area and what we need. And then there's also the IT budget for technology for the new building that we are working. And of course, the school department is really driving a lot of this conversation because they know what they need, and we just have to make sure it all works within the budget we've got, and that the kids get everything they need to learn. This is going to be an amazing school, and I know Bob can touch on some of that FF&E type of expenditure.
Yeah, Bob, maybe you can give our viewers a little bit of an idea of what that entails.
Sure. The FF&E, as the mayor said, our intent is to finish the building in the spring of 2018, and typically at about a month before you're complete, we always try to get the elevators inspected so that you can start moving in furniture into the classrooms, furniture into the offices, put your bookcases into the media center so you can start thinking about moving those materials over to the building. So that'll probably take place in spring of 2018. Those will be separate contracts from the construction contract, but they'll bring in everything from desks and chairs to library shelves to cafeteria tables, and that'll happen in March, April, and May of 2018.
Right. So you're looking for a finish of construction summer of 2018, so that then the September class of that year can move in, or classes can move in.
So the team is trying to deliver the school as early as possible. We know that we want for teachers to be able to move in at the end of that school year that ends in June 18, to be ready to open the school year in September of 2018 without a rush, making sure that everything, in an orderly way and a thoughtful way gets prepared for the kids.
Yeah, yeah. Now, Mike, any closing thoughts about the scope of the project and how everybody's worked with the engineers and the designer and the school committee? And I know you've had your regular school building committee meetings for the last several years.
Well, this is a great team that we've got from our citizen volunteer school building committee to our team of project manager, architect, and construction manager. They're all fantastic to work with, and the school department and the city have been really in sync from day one on this. I will say that a couple of fun things that are going on right now. The school will be named the Beverly Middle School. That was decided some time ago. We took a look at other communities. Communities that have one middle school tend to call it the name of the community, middle school, and we for a long time had two, but now we'll have one. So the Beverly Middle School, and the folks at Briscoe right now, the administration, are working with the kids on selecting a mascot for the school. So they're having an election next week, and the current Briscoe kids, as well as the 4th and 5th graders down at the elementary school level, are going to be voting on what the mascot will be. I know that there was some public input and opportunity for the community at large to share their thoughts. And what came out of that process was 2 choices that the kids will vote on, either the Panthers or the Cubs.
The Cubs, okay.
We'll see if the Cubs have some extra push after the other night, right? But you know, that's kind of typical too from community to community, that the mascot at the middle school level tends to be either the same as the high school or a younger version of what the high school is.
Yeah.
The colors will be black and orange as the high school colors are, as a lot of the kids are used to wearing at the youth level, so that's really how they identify. So the mascot will be voted on November 7th. And then after that, there'll be a logo contest that any Beverly Public School student can participate in, and at a certain point, there'll be a logo selected, and we'll be ready to go forward with all of that.
Well, wonderful. Well, from the construction site here at the new middle school, I want to thank Bob Gilchrist from Agostini and Bacon.
Walt.
And Mr. Mayor, thank you
Thanks,
as
Walt.
always. It's wonderful. And I'd like to remind our viewers that you have been watching City Scene with Mayor Mike Cahill. I'm your host, Walt Kosmowski. Thank you for watching.